8th graders. So I don't normally film from my house, but this is my house. This is just one of my bookcases. But here we are. So welcome to my home part of it, just like a small corner of it. Anyway, it is Act 2, Scene 1 and Scene 2 of Anne Frank last time. Today you're going to be reading different scenes, but as always, I'm going to recap. So Margot in this scene is sick. They are having to give her medicine so she will be quiet, so she won't cough and, tell people, hey, what was that weird cough? Are people living above our factory? So Meep is a sweetie pie, and she brings them a cake. And sugar is being rationed, so they only get a limited amount. Sugar's being rationed right now, so she uses all of her sugar rations to make them a cake, and it says peace in 1944, and she gave them a cake at the beginning of last year that said peace in 1943, and someone says, well, it has to come sometime. All right, here's the drama. Mr. Van Dan is so hungry, and Mr. Dussel accuses Mrs. Van Dan of not sharing food equally because Mr. Van Dan is so hungry, and so the whole scene he's trying to get more cake even though they're dividing it evenly. So he's like, well, surely Margot's too sick to have cake, and at one point Anne leaves the room and he tries to steal her cake. And he's also asked Meep to bring him cigarettes because remember, he is addicted to cigarettes and he really wants cigarettes, so much so that he tries to guilt his wife to sell her fur coat. Remember, her fur coat is very special to her because her father gave it to her. And also, her fur coat is a symbol of her wealth, and she doesn't want to give that up. Understandably, they've lost everything. So he tries to be like, people could use your fur coat. And really, he just wants it he wants to use the money for cigarettes. So Mr. Crawler comes in and gives some bad news. He informs Mr. Frank that one of Mr. Frank's former employees is now saying I feel like I'm hearing things, maybe upstairs. And so they are being blackmailed. And so Mr. Crawler says, do I pay him? Do I not? Mr. Dussel is like, yes, of course you pay him. Otherwise, we are going to be found out. And then Mr. Dussel accuses him of being the thief. Not Mr. Crawler, but the person who's blackmailing them. And things are getting pretty bad because Margot, who doesn't talk a lot, says sometimes I just wish things would end. I just wish this would be over, no matter what the outcome. Anne has this big tirade. She gets really upset at everybody because she feels like she's being babied and coddled, and she's like, you all were young, you don't understand what we're going through as grown-ups. We are missing out on our youth, and we're missing out on all of those experiences. And so she storms to her room. Mr. Van Dan tries to steal her cake, but Peter takes it to her, and they kind of bond. So in the next scene, Margot is in her room and with Anne, so they're in their old room, Anne and Mr. Dussel's room, and Anne is getting ready because she's going to go to Peter's room, and she has been doing this quite frequently. So the people, how they feel about it, Mr. Dussel is annoyed because Anne is using their room to get ready so much. Mrs. Van Dan thinks she feels a little ignored by her son, and she feels a little, this isn't the way things are done, and things like that. Mrs. Frank is trying to be supportive of her daughter, but she doesn't like that they leave the door closed when they hang out, and she doesn't like that, she doesn't want Anne to stay very late. So they hang out in Peter's room, and they're just talking, and he's saying, I didn't like you, at all when I first met you. She's like, oh, I didn't know how I felt about you. And then they're kind of just talking, and then Anne asks if he has ever kissed a girl. And they kind of talk about their kissing experience. They talk neither one of them has really had their kiss. first kiss, and then the chime rings because they're right by a church. And she says, "Okay, good night." And he says, "Good night." And then they just kind of stare at each other. And then he kisses her on the cheek. And then he goes out. Oh my goodness, I misspoke. They've been meeting in Anne's room. And then he goes out, and then Mrs. Van Daan says, "Aha!" Like she knows that they like each other. So that is what is going on. We will see what happens next time on Anne Frank. Bye. Love y'all. Miss you.